Caseus, the Inner Storm. Chapter 3.
Caseus! Caseus, help me! Don't let him kill me!
Get up, boy. Time to start.
Caseus awoke with a shiver running through his body as he breathed slowly.
I said get up. I won't tell you again. Meet me in the hangar.
Caseus murmured under his breath as he stood and got dressed. Juro was sitting down, tinkering with the cybernetic arm.
Sleep all right?
Yeah. Caseus lied. He hadn't slept well in a long time. Certainly not since everything went downhill. How's the arm coming along?
It's tricky. I'm not much of an engineer, but I think I can figure something out. You should get going. I'll keep working on this.
Caseus looked at the ramp of the shuttle and walked outside. The air was still fairly cold. The twin suns of the planet had only just begun to rise. Walking down through the Praxium cruiser, Caseus found the hangar, its blast doors completely blown off, leaving an enormous hole looking out into the empty desert landscape.
I was starting to think you got lost.
Dravok stood in the center of the hangar amidst large, ruined starships and terrain vehicles.
Are you ready to begin?
Caseus nodded and sat in a meditative stance.
What are you doing?
Caseus opened his eyes. Meditating. It's how I always started my training.
You can meditate on your own time. In case you haven't figured it out by now, you're not Master Takai's pupil anymore. Her soft teaching isn't going to fly here. You're my student now. And I'm going to push you harder than you've ever been pushed before. Now get on your feet.
Caseus clenched his fist.
Seeing as how you're a bit short-handed at the moment.
Caseus scowled at the remark.
You're going to have to make do with one-handed saber combat. You trained in Makashi, correct?
A bit, yes. I'm no expert if that's what you wanted to hear. Dravok, the longer we wait, the more innocent people will die by Skywalker's hands. We should get this team you talked about together as soon as possible and strike while we have the element of surprise. Dravok narrowed his eyes.
So eager to enact your revenge. I like it. Okay, Caseus, I'll tell you what. If you can land a single attack on me, I'll concede. And we'll do things your way. Deal?
Caseus activated his lightsaber as Dravok threw aside his robe and switched his saber on.
Go ahead. Give it all you've got.
Caseus ran towards Dravok and swung his lightsaber in a rather sloppy display of Makashi as Dravok dodged around each strike.
Try again, boy.
Caseus flipped backwards and thrusted his blade right into Dravok's leg as he easily avoided the stab before kicking Caseus in the face, staggering him.
This is pathetic. Tell you what, why don't I make it a little easier for you?
Dravok threw his lightsaber aside and held his arms open wide.
Come on, Caseus. I'm waiting.
Caseus was becoming enraged as he flew at Dravok, swinging wildly at every possible opening. It was like he was trying to fight his shadow. No matter what he tried, he couldn't hit him.
Had enough? Stop toying with me!
Caseus struck at Dravok's head, but the former Jedi grabbed his wrist and clenched it tightly, forcing Caseus to drop his saber as he twisted. Caseus was being forced to his knees as Dravok glared down at him.
You think you're ready for Skywalker? You think you're prepared to take down the most powerful Jedi in over 1,000 years? You're weak, Caseus, just like the rest of the Jedi were. And look what happened to them.
Dravok roughly shoved Caseus to the floor.
You're a long ways away from being ready to fight anyone, let alone Skywalker. You need discipline. You need that drive, that inner strength. Feed off of your emotions.
Caseus seethed in rage as he stood completely humiliated.
Until we ignite that fire in your soul, you stand no chance against him.
And how exactly do we do that? Dravok struck Caseus across the face and knocked him to the floor.
By breaking you, by dismantling the foundations of your prior training, by focusing your rage. My rage is not a weapon. Skywalker needs to die, but I won't lose myself trying to accomplish that. You poor fool. You delude yourself. Look inside of you, Caseus. I can sense it. So can you. There's a storm brewing inside of your very soul. A darkness that festers in your heart. Our goal is not to give in to it, but to focus it. To use it as a tool. If you shun these emotions, you deprive yourself of an invaluable asset. Think back to your duel with Skywalker. What did you feel in that moment?
Caseus looked down and shut his eyes.
Hatred. Anger. Loss. Think. You lasted longer than you should have against him. Because you let these emotions in. You used them. But you let them overtake you. And you became sloppy. To focus your anger takes time and strength. Until you've learned to foster the fire that burns for vengeance and focus your anger into one person, you'll never have what it takes.
Caseus slowly stood and sighed. Everything he had learned from the Jedi, from his master, told him to steer clear of emotions like hate and anger, that they could lead him down a dangerous path. He feared it. He feared becoming the evil he swore never to become. But what if Dravok was right? What if he could focus these emotions, feed off of them, without giving in completely?
Teach me. I'm sorry. I didn't catch that. Say again.
Caseus clenched his teeth and grimaced.
Teach me.
Dravok smirked in satisfaction.
Then prepare yourself, Caseus. The training I have in store for you will be painful. There will be no rest, no breaks, no sleep, unless I say so. You will beg for me to stop. I will not. You will cry out for mercy. You'll receive none. You may very well beg for the release of death. It will not come. As your new master, my goal will be to break you and mold you into a warrior capable of defeating Skywalker. It will be hell. Are you ready?
Caseus was filled with fear, but he pushed it down.
I'm ready. Good. Now, come at me.
Caseus spent all day sparring with Dravok. It was hell. Absolute hell. Dravok's skill alone was challenge enough, but his arrogant taunting, his boasting, it was unbearable. Not a single attack he threw at him landed. Not a single cell in his body didn't scream in pain by the end of the day. The suns finally set, and Caseus lay on the floor of the hangar, bruised, bloodied, and physically unable to continue.
Drag your carcass back to your lab rat friend. We'll start again in the morning. I can't move. There is no I can't. Get on your feet. Please. I can't.
Dravok was about to kick Caseus in his stomach before he saw something around Caseus' neck, secured by a leather cord. Sarah's Padawan braid. Dravok smiled deviously.
Then you won't mind if I take this.
Dravok ripped the braid from around his neck and began walking away as Caseus groaned and tried to stand.
No, give that back. Now.
Dravok turned around and looked at Caseus.
If you can get to me before it becomes fuel for the fire, you can have it back.
Caseus' eyes widened as Dravok continued up the tilted corridors towards the top of the cruiser. Caseus mustered every possible bit of strength he could, dragging himself forward, scraping and cutting his skin with broken bits of glass and metal. Grabbing onto a pipe attached to the wall, he hoisted himself to his feet and held on, blood and sweat trickling down his forehead as he gasped for air, desperately hoisting himself forward. Every step was a new nightmare. But he pushed through. He couldn't lose it. It was all he had left of her. With unimaginable effort, he made his way to the hull of the ship, where Dravok stood, holding the braid over the fire. No, please.
Too late.
Dravok dropped the braid. Caseus cried out just as Juro snatched it from falling. Dravok turned around as Juro glared at him.
Don't you dare. This doesn't concern you, clone. My apprentice needs to learn a painful lesson in perseverance. Look at him!
Juro walked over to Caseus, who collapsed into a pathetic heap. Juro helped him up slowly and gave him the braid back, which Caseus clutched in his fist, holding it tightly to his chest.
He's been through enough today. Let him be.
Dravok looked to Juro and back to the pitiful boy in tears.
Disgraceful.
Dravok walked back inside of the cruiser as Juro helped Caseus up and into the ship where he tended to his wounds.
It's okay, sir. You can rest. I'll take care of you.
Sarah. Caseus slowly passed out from exhaustion. Dravok wasn't lying. This wasn't training. It was hell.